this microburst video is to talk about how to complete the Part 1 family information of the Family Services Plan. So in order to document that, we're going to first go into our case, the Breyers case, and bring them into view by clicking on the Show button. And then to get into the Family Services Plan, we look for the yellow folder on the secondary toolbar here called the Family Services Plan. And then Family Information is the very first of all of the tabs in the Family Services Plan. So now that I have that brought into view, a couple of things. One, the Family Information is the only part of the entire Family Services Plan that actually does have to be filled out first. It's called the Part 1 Family Information, and then the others are also numbered: Social History, Part 2, Treatment Plan, Part 3A, etc. But the rest, as you learned about in the overview video about the Family Services Plan, you fill out related to circumstance or occasion. So the Family Info tab actually does have to be completed first because you have to capture who all the players are in this particular Family Services Plan, because you will need to have them identified in Part 1, Family Information, in order to fill out different tabs that come up later related to circumstance. So for example, when you get ready to do the treatment plan, if you didn't, for example, have Jason Lockwood or Christina Breyers listed under your participant summary in the Part 1, they're not going to pop up as a potential player or a person that you can select in the drop-down client box later on as you're completing the treatment plan. So if you're ever later on filling out a part of the Family Services Plan and the person who you want to include in that section is missing, that's just a clue for you to go back to the Family Info tab. So that's really important, and that's how come we put everybody in first here. So let's say you did go into the treatment plan and you were noticing you were missing someone from the drop-down menu in the treatment plan. You could just simply come back to Family Info, click Clear, and then enter somebody as a client, a collateral, or a provider. I'm not going to do that because we're not adding anybody today, but I just want to give you that hint. So I'm going to click on Cancel and go back into the Family Info tab. Another part of the Family Information tab is that you'll notice that it's also the place where we indicate what the different permanency goals are for the children. So Samuel Breyers has a permanency goal of return home, as well as his sister Janessa and his sister Trinity. So keeping Trinity into focus, and you do have to have individual permanency goals because in some sibling groups it is possible that they'll all have different permanency goals. So that's how come we have to individually document those. So having Trinity into view, we can see down below her permanency goal is return home, and that was set July 21st, and the target date goal was January 21st, which was 6 months from the original date. So some caseworkers put 6 months out, and some caseworkers put a year out. So if I had put a year out originally, July 21st, 2016, you can do either. I think the big thing is to have a conversation with the family that if you set out the target date 6 months from the date set, you want to let the family know that it may take more than 6 months in order to accomplish everything to get to permanency, or if you put a year, that it may not take as long as a year, or it may take longer. I think the important thing is to have the conversation with the family. Also, at the point that, let's say, Trinity does get to go home, you would come back here in the Family Information later at the point of reunification and change her goal from return home to remain home. So FYI about this, we have to come back as things change during the case as it relates to permanency. She's not going home quite yet, so I'm going to keep return home as her plan. And then we also have an option here to enter what we call the alternative permanency goal. You may hear of it also called the concurrent permanency goal, or the Plan B. Our Plan A is our permanency goal over here, our primary permanency goal, and the alternative is Plan B. So essentially you'll learn more about that in class, that we're always wanting to run a Plan A and a Plan B as we're working towards permanency for children. So let's just select a permanency goal that's an alternative goal for Trinity, her concurrent plan. Let's say we're going to do permanent placement with a relative through adoption. So we have our primary goal that we're working towards, and then we have a plan B if plan A doesn't come to fruition. So we also capture that in the Part 1 Family Information tab. You'll also notice up here there's a place for us to list the FSP participation dates. So we have the start date when the case involvement started with this family, and then we also have a place to enter the end date. That won't be filled out until much later when we're getting ready to close out the family services plan, as we're getting ready to close out the case. You also have the option over here for any of the children. Oh, it's asking me if I want to save my changes. I'm going to say yes. Thank you, Trails, for that reminder to go up here and save my changes. What you'll also notice, just to piggyback or go backwards, Samuel, Janessa, and Trinity, also when you have them into view related to their permanency goal, you do have this button over here where you can follow their permanency goal history, so that if you have made changes to their permanency goal over time, Trails does keep that, keep track of that for you. Okay? So the last piece about the Part 1 family information that I want to let you know about are these other tabs outside of the participant details. So we have general info, address, phone, education, employment, attorney, GAL, and relationships. So Trails has a cool function in here related to accessing this information so that you don't have to back all the way out to get it. So for example, if I wanted to get to the address, I can view it in the Part 1 here, and I can actually go over to show and make some changes. If, let's say, the family moved, I would end date their address here, click on clear, and enter a new address. So I can actually view that from the Part 1. I can make changes by clicking on show, and that's an efficiency factor in Trails, because otherwise, if they didn't have these tabs here, we would have to hit cancel and then go back to our workload, click on client, click on Samuel, click on show, and then go into general information to get to where we just were, to go to the address, etc. So that's a nice feature that we can, I'm going to go back to the Part 1, that we can actually just view and make changes to these different sections instead of having to back out like I just did. So that's it for this microburst video. Again, not too bad in terms of documentation, but you can definitely gather a lot of information from this section of the Family Services Plan. And if you are submitting your treatment plan or your review to the court and they're accepting your Family Services Plan in court, you can actually print off the family information over here to use as your cover sheet for your court treatment plan or your court review, if you're able to, in your jurisdiction, submit those to the court instead of a formal court letter. So that's it for today.